Well, hello and welcome to Faith, Philosophy and Life with me, Mr. Shelton. Behind me is an image of a police car. I'm sure you probably already guessed that. And this is a very interesting one today. This is in fact one of my favourite topics within Buddhism, to be perfectly honest with you, because it's all to do with Buddhist rules, but it's more to do with the methodology behind the rules and why Buddhists do what they do, which I think is really interesting, because actually you'll start to realise that a Buddhist life might be similar to yours in some way, but also could be very, very different. So when you see a police car, you think, what have I done wrong this time? Or maybe that's just me that thinks that. But maybe you see the police as a security blanket, as someone who is there to help and support you. And indeed, that should be what their role is. However, the police, though, are there to maintain the law. And we're going to think about some of the Buddhist rules, which kind of would be policed by some of the Buddhist community. But you'll see actually that these are more to do with desires and principles rather than specific laws like you might have in other faiths, so like the Ten Commandments, for example. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to terrific time. Amen. Okay, so thanks for that. So this is the time for you to go and grab your pen and paper, because here's our cheesy intro music. Okay, so what I'd like you to do now is I would like you to come up with 5 rules you think everyone should live by. 5 rules that you think everyone should live by. Write them in your book, write them on the back of the book, write them on a post-it note, don't care, do it now. Just make sure you pause this clip. So I wonder what those 5 rules were that you came up with. Maybe there were things like don't steal, don't murder, don't commit some sort of horrific type of abuse, be a vegetarian, I don't know. We're going to look at what some of those Buddhist rules would be that they'd come up with. So our title today is How Do the 5 Precepts Help Buddhist Thought? How do the 5 Precepts help Buddhist thought? Get that written down. And we're going to understand how the Buddha's 5 precepts affect the lives of modern Buddhists. Understand how the Buddha's 5 precepts affect the lives of modern Buddhists. And where literally objective is to transform information into another format, which will make sense in a few minutes. So by the end of this lesson, a good lesson will be if you could retell the 5 precepts so you know what they are. Great if you can have started to consider how a Buddhist might try and live their lives based on these precepts. So we're going to consider not just what they are, but how that would affect somebody. And even better, if you can begin to evaluate if you think the 5 precepts are helpful or not, and why, in terms of leading a good life. So our literacy skill is going to be writing for explanation. We're going to do some effective time management as well, because you're going to need to really time yourself, or else this lesson could go on all day, and you don't want to be looking at me all day. It's scary enough for me looking in the mirror. So we've got sort of these things within our lesson. So we've got 5 things that you've done. We're going to get some information, a mini write review, and the world ... So to start with then, I would like you to access the Google Drive. Link is below. So click on that. That will load up, or give you access, should I say, to one document which has got on it the 5 precepts and a bit of information about the Dharma. Now you can see that there are 3 questions on this. It is very similar to last time's activity on the Four Noble Truths. So it does look similar, and that is absolutely deliberate, because if you weren't had to do last week's, then you know how to do this week's. Simple, really, as the meerkat would say. So what you're going to do is you're going to read over it, and then you're going to complete tasks 1, 2 and 3. Make sure you do them in order. Make sure you label them as precept 1, precept 2, precept 3, precept 4, precept 5 in the Dharma, because you'll find that that makes a lot more sense for the next task. So this should take you, well, try and give yourself 4 minutes per section. Right, set yourself a little timer on your watch or your phone or your computer or your laptop or whatever. Set yourself 4 minutes and work through those. Because if you spend any longer than 4 minutes, you will be there all day. So it's a real quick activity, this. Pause me now, so you don't have to listen to me witter for the next 20 minutes or so, and then come back to me when you're done. Okay, so we said our learning outcomes would be to understand how the 5 precepts affect the lives of modern Buddhists. And actually, you realise that even though they were written just over 2,500 years ago, they're still pretty good for today's living. Maybe there is some truth there. So a good outcome would be if you could read down the 5 precepts. Hopefully you can do that now. And great if you start to consider how a Buddhist might try and put those in their lives. So hopefully now we're getting there with that, and even better if we can evaluate that. No, we're not quite there yet. So we've done our 5 things, we've done our getting information. Now there's a little bit more on that before we do our mini write review. So this is what you are going to do. You need an A4 sheet of paper, and I'm going to show you how to make a little 6-part booklet. So you're going to need to watch this and follow this through very carefully. But what you will do when you've done that is I will return to this so you can pause back to this screen, but you're going to create a 5-part booklet, even though it's made in 6 parts. The last part then can get glued into your book, and you're going to do one section for each of these things. So you've got don't harm living beings, don't take what's not given, don't abuse relationships, don't use false speech, and don't take drugs that cloud the mind. So on each section you're going to write one precept and draw an appropriate picture. You're going to explain how if that's a good thing or not, and give an example of when somebody might have to try and live with that. So I'm going to now show you how to do that, and then you can get on and make one, and then we'll come back to me. Okay, so I'm going to take you through now how to create a leaflet. Now to do that you do need a piece of paper, preferably A4 in size, and this is the way that it's going to work. The first thing you need to do is you need to fold that paper, hold that paper in landscape form, and then fold it in half. Okay, landscape. So it's long and thin like that. Then what you're going to do is you're starting at the left, so you're going to fold the first section over so it makes roughly a square. Okay, so that might take a little bit of precision. So what you're looking for is to get that length and that length about the same. So that length and that length about the same. Okay, now, so what you've then got, you've got a square there, and then you've got a flappy bit there. I'd like you to take the flappy bit and just for this moment in time, fold it backwards. Okay, so you've ended up with a square. And here's why I say, Mr. Shelton, what's the front, what's the back? Makes absolutely no difference to you. Okay, so when you've done that, if you've done it correctly, just fold it back on itself. So again, you've got that square there, but then it opens up slightly differently. What you need to do is to leave this blank, this back page blank, because that's the one that you're going to glue in your book. So you've got flap 1, flap 2, flap 3, flap 4, flap 5. Okay, and this is what you're going to do on it. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to write the precepts. So the first precept that I've got is don't harm living beings. Okay, so there's my first precept. Okay, what I'm then going to do is I'm going to draw an appropriate picture. So that's the funniest looking spider that you've got, that I've ever drawn, and there is a foot with a leg stamping on it. Okay, so that's not a good thing to do. Okay, so I've got my title, I've written explain, I've drawn a little picture there to show what that looks like. So there's my foot and there's the spider. Okay, now the next thing is I need to say why it's a good thing. This is good because it stops deliberate harm on others. You might write a little bit more than that. That's sort of my scribble. And then give an example, i.e. a butcher would not be a Buddhist as it brings harm. Okay, and that's the sort of idea. Then you go through and you do the same thing on all of the others. So that is your task. I shall leave that with you. Okay, so that's how to make the booklet. I've gone through the task with you. This task, put a bit of colour on it, make it look pretty. Send a photograph of it to your teacher. I certainly would like to see my groups. And this will take you hopefully about 3 minutes a section, so you're going to have to do it quick. 3 times 5 is, that's right, 15. My maths is good. So pause me now and let's get on with that task. Okay, so what we've done then is we're still consolidated a good and a great outcome, and now it's our time to do our even better outcome, to see if we can evaluate if the 5 precepts are helpful or not. So to do that, I've got a little writing structure here for you, and the question is this: are the 5 precepts helpful in today's world? It's as simple as that. So you're going to start with a little paragraph or a few sentences about 4, whether you agree. So I think the 5 precepts are helpful today because, so you're going to come up with some reasons why they are. Then against, I think sometimes the precepts are unhelpful because, and you need to come up with reasons why you don't think they'll actually do work all the time. Overall, I think, okay, so you're going to make a reasoned judgment, and if everyone agreed with me, what would happen? Okay, if everyone agreed with you, what would the 5 precepts be helpful or not, and how would that affect the world? So that's it, really. So you're going to have to pause this now, and then get on with that task. Obviously, send anything through to your teacher, because we'd love to see it, because we're missing you in our classrooms. Well, some of you anyway. So I'll leave it at that note. Thanks very much for your time. Take care of yourselves. God bless. Stay safe. Wash hands. And I'll see you next week.